what's happening, people? This is your host, Jack Talk Ty, and this is the series called Comics Obscurity, where we kind of piece things together. And some of these episodes we do reveal, like little hidden things. But in this one, we're just going to give you a little bit of quick history about the Dream King himself, Morpheus. We're going to talk about the Endless, specifically Dream, Morpheus, the Sandman, and how the universe worked without the Sandman being a part of it. Now, the Sandman is part of a group called the Endless. The Endless are the children of time and night. Time is their father and night is their mother. Now, here we look at some of the Endless here. This first one is Destiny. Now, Destiny, he debuted in Weird Mystery Tales #1 in 1972. Now, of course, back at that time, we didn't know that he was part of the Endless because, the writers had not created, or the writer, I should say. Mr. Neil Gaiman had not yet created the Endless. And that book he's got chained to his wrist is the Book of Destiny. Every story ever written, every life, and even lives that have yet to take place, it's all in that Book of Destiny. That's his book. And Destiny is also, he's blind, I should add. He can't see. All right? But his book is his totem of power, basically. Now, we see the other members of the Endless here. We see Desire, for example. Now, Desire is male or female, depending on who Desire is talking to. And when I say these people's names, like Destiny, for example, he's the embodiment of destiny. Desire is the embodiment of desire. What we see here, their brother, Destruction. All right, and next we see Despair. And Despair looks, just like Despair would, like you would think it would look. We have also the younger sister, Delirium. And Delirium, if I recall, it's been a while since I read this stuff now, but Delirium used to be Delight. That's who she used to be. And over time, when she's been in existence since time itself began, even before, you could say, she kind of degenerated into Delirium. So she started out as Delight, and now she's Delirium. Now here, the seventh one we have is Morpheus himself, Dream. This is the guy we're going to be talking about. And finally, we have his older sister, and he's quite close to her, and she's a fan favorite. I've seen people dressed as her just on their way to work in the morning. You see a lot of cosplay of her during the comic conventions, but she's Death. And this is, she's one of the older members of the, and I think she came into existence second. If I'm not mistaken, Destiny came first, and then Death was born. All right, well, as it so happens, Morpheus, the Sandman, had some problems, and this problem came to a head on June 10th in the year 1916. A crazy guy by the name of Roderick Burgess decided he wanted to be immortal. And he was a magician. He was a black magician. He knew all about the dark arts. And this is magic with a K on the end of it, if you can dig it. And this guy, Roderick, using some different, items of power, planned to capture death. And if he captured death itself, he would live forever. He wouldn't die. Now, he made some mistakes in his spell, and he ended up capturing Dream instead of death. And Dream was trapped in his glass globe, and that was it. He was just stuck. Now, Dream stayed there in this thing for 70 years. And the thing with the Endless is these guys are a force of nature. They are the embodiment of what they are, what their names are. That's what they embody. So without Dream, the universe kind of went a little crazy. Reality kind of went crazy, and different people all around the world had different experiences with the loss of Dream. And the universe realized, well, we got to do something here. We got to have a dream. Someone has to be the Dream King. So in its haste and its panic, the universe kind of haphazardly slapped together replacement Sandman. And we look at this first one. He's Wesley Dodge, known as the Sandman. He was a member of the Justice Society of America. Now, it's interesting to note that one of the key members of the JSA of the 1940s was a woman called Wonder Woman that we all know and love. And, she's got a big movie coming out soon. Now, this is not the Wonder Woman that we are familiar with. This is a Wonder Woman of World War II. This is the Wonder Woman of an alternate Earth at the time called Earth 2 that existed in the World War II timeline. Well, in that I'm kind of misleading. It's not that Earth existed in that timeline. That's the time that this stuff with Wesley Dodds was happening. So Wesley Dodds was made into the Sandman. You see he has a gas mask on there. Now that was his close approximation of what the actual Sandman Morpheus looked like. The Sandman has a similar mask that's made from the bones of a dead god. And Wesley Dodds started having prophetic dreams and dreams of impending disasters and things he could stop. And he basically became the new Sandman. Now, he didn't have all the powers and everything. He just basically was able to foresee certain things happening. Now, a little while after that, we come into this guy, Garrett Sanford. Now, it's important to note his name was not Garrett Sanford the way Mr. Kirby introduced him. This is a Jack Kirby creation here. And, you know, I'm going to tell you, before I started writing or taking the notes for this particular episode, I mistakenly had it in my head that the Sandman Wesley Dodds was a Jack Kirby creation because Kirby created about 99.9% of everything in the comics world, and some of it bled over outside of the comics world. But Wesley Dodds was not a Kirby creation. Garrett Sanford, however, this cool-looking Sandman from the 70s, I should say, was created. He appeared first in Sandman number 1, 1974. And again, as Mr. Kirby created him, he was not intended to be just a dude in a uniform with machines. He was intended to be the Dream King. Now, why the Dream King would need machinery and why he would dress like a superhero is anyone's guess. But that's what Mr. Kirby had intended originally. It was later, you know, writers came along and added little details like, oh, this guy is a dude named Garrett Sanford. He was part of a project, basically, in which they were trying to rescue the president. The president was having some issues with it. He'd been asleep for a few days, and so they sent this Sandman in with technology and that type of thing. Now, he had two guys working with. These guys are important. Glob and Brute, very important characters. They may seem minor, but they are major characters. Now, we find out much later that Garrett Sanford had been misled, basically. He was being misled by Glob and Brute is what was going on. They were manipulating him. They were they created their own dream realm using the dreams of a little boy. I believe his name was Jed Walker, if I'm not mistaken. And they basically were lying to this guy, Garrett Sanford. He lived in a dream state in this little dream world they were in, where everything seemed like kind of hazy and everything was kind of trippy. And it was easy to manipulate him because Glob and Brute controlled everything there. Well, as it ends up happening, Garrett Sanford goes a little crazy over time. All right. And we see here, he at one point starts watching Wonder Woman's dreams. Now, this is not the same Wonder Woman that Wesley Dodds. This is a different Earth. This is Earth 1. This is the mainstream Wonder Woman of that time period of the early 80s. And Sandman was watching her dreams, and he basically was lusting after her and stalking her is the best way to put it. He was stalking Wonder Woman. He was going insane. He was alone. He could only manifest himself on Earth in the physical form for 1 hour at a time, a little fact that was introduced later in the series. So he eventually does basically just die. They didn't go into any great detail, but Garrett Sanford basically just died from loneliness and insanity in the dream dimension he was in. And a young man by the name of Hector Hall, who is a teammate of a young lady named Lita Hall. Lita is the Fury. She's the daughter of that World War II Wonder Woman that I mentioned. At least she was at this point in the timeline. Things have been changed a little bit. But Hector ends up becoming the new Sandman. Now again, Glob and Brute are still in control because Morpheus is gone. And they bring this Hector in and they put his spirit in Garrett's deceased body. And basically, the body even comes to resemble Hector's, and Hector's the new Sandman. Again, Hector he's in a dream kind of world. Everything's dopey, and he's a dopey superhero, and Lita's there in the dreaming, and she's pregnant eternally. She is eternally pregnant. It's just she's walking around brushing her hair all day, basically. It's a dream world that they live in, and they're being manipulated by Glob and Brute. Okay, so finally, we get to the payoff. We get to Sandman number 1, okay, 1989. Morpheus is freed from Roderick Burgess's captivity, and he goes about regaining his items, which were his gem which had been used by an old Justice League of America villain called Dr. Destiny. His magical sand, his pouch of sand, which had come across the hands of one of John Constantine's friends. And his helmet that I mentioned before that is made from the bones of a dead god. Now, Morpheus looks, if he's standing before Martian Manhunter as we see here, he doesn't look like Morpheus as we envision him. He looks like how Martian Manhunter would see him. Morpheus is the god of all dreams. Any dream god who has a different name, that's just Morpheus with a different name. It's still Morpheus. So if an African person sees him, they see him as the African dream god. He regains his things and he basically takes out this new Sandman that's taking his place that Glob and Brute have misled into thinking he's Sandman. It's a real cool fight scene. It's part of the first story arc. And Morpheus reclaims his spot as the Sandman. Now, I mentioned the World War II Wonder Woman. Now, again, she had a daughter named Lita Trevor. Lita Trevor's boyfriend is the son of the Golden Age Hawkman. If I'm not mistaken, the Silver Scarab. Now, the two of them have a son. Their little boy Daniel is born, and there's, you see Daniel throughout the series. Long story short and spoiler free, Morpheus is no longer Sandman, and Daniel currently is the Dream King. He is Sandman. He's the son of Lita and Hector Hall. And yeah, that's basically what there is to know as far as Sandman's place in the universe. Now again, he and the Endless are abstract beings. Just like Marvel has things like, let me give you good examples, the In-Betweener or the Living Tribunal, or whoever you can think of, these different godly, cosmic, abstract beings. Even Galactus to a degree is an abstract being. The Endless are basically that for DC. They are the embodiments of these different aspects. And that's pretty much what there is to know about how the universe filled that space up with Morpheus being gone. All right, we had Wesley Dodds, we had Garrett Sanford, and later we had Hector Hall. Morpheus then returned, and now we're at Daniel. The Saga of the Sandman. I highly recommend you guys who enjoy good reading read The Sandman. It's mature, it's thought-provoking, it's beautifully drawn, and he works in a ton of real-world history, a ton of dream-type stuff. It's all throughout the series, and it's just a tremendous series by the great Mr. Neil Gaiman. This has been Comics Obscurity. Like we've said before, you can leave us a comment below. Tell us what you like, what you don't like, what you want to hear about. If I left out some details you feel are important, brush me up on them. Just leave us a comment below. And thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you soon.